inside, right? That what is inside of us is what is reflected back to us from the world, because inside is where we hold our beliefs. And that is simply the most happy life hack I have ever found. A life hack is something that you do to make your life easier. Like, I don't know, some people figured out that if you take a paper clip and roll the bottom of the toothpaste around that, you can get more toothpaste out of the thingy, right? You guys didn't know about that? That's a life hack. Things, silly little things like that, like when I was a kid, it was put a brick inside of your toilet so that you don't waste water. You didn't know about that one either? Dude, you're doing well today. A brick or a jug of water also worked. It's also a great place to hide stuff if you are in a motel. Put it in a plastic baggie, tape it to the inside. Thank you, the Godfather. So life hacks. Life hacks are actually what we're talking about today. And that's what we teach here. Life hacks. Spiritual life hacks. And so this month, our value that we're focused on for the month is spirituality. Seems kind of obvious to me, but maybe we need to go back and take a look at it. Our theme for the month is moral spiritual leadership. Moral does not apply to mushrooms. That's not what we're talking about. I think those are called morels, actually. Okay, whatever. I went to morale as well and went, that's not it. Moral spiritual leadership. Now, the first time I figured out that that was moral and not the mushrooms, I went to the old moral majority thing that happened in I think it was like the 80s, maybe early 90s. Remember them? The moral majority? Now, I was in the Deep South for the most part, and so to me, the moral majority were those people that surrounded me that were actually very nice, but every so often they kind of got a little preachy. And as I got older, I recognized that although they called themselves the moral majority, a lot of them were going to jail for embezzlement. All of these preachers. Now, many of them, I absolutely believe, got into ministry for good reasons. Out of having a servant's heart, out of wanting to spread what they saw as a better way to live. Here's the thing. I personally think there are many great ways to live. And that's what our teaching teaches. That's why we honor all paths to God. I'm not honoring all paths to the island of Manhattan. That doesn't matter to me. It's all the paths that lead you inside into your spiritual truth that I will honor. So moral, I had to go look it up. And actually it is regarding the principles of good and bad human behavior, as well as the ideas around what is good or bad in terms of human character. Now, that second one is really easy for us. Why? Because people are inherently God, and so therefore they are inherently good. Takes care of half of the entire problem in one fell swoop. I don't have to worry about whether people are of good or bad inherent character. If we are all God, then we are all good, right? If you agree with me, you'll get a shorter talk. If I have to argue with you about this, we're going to be here for a while. What we then go to is what makes good or bad human behavior. And Ernest Holmes was often asked, if we're supposed to be, what is it okay to pray for? What should I be praying for? I found myself doing a visioning this weekend on some personal stuff and started feeling like I was asking for too much. Like, I can't be doing ministry out of an egoic place if I actually, want to do X, Y, and Z and get famous for X, Y, and Z. Being a happy minister who works human hours rather than the 60 to 90 some of my compatriots work. I will let you know right now I am not doing that. I don't think you'd like me very much if I did. Reverend Kathleen's not funny when she's not sleeping. At least not on purpose. So I had to go back to a deep truth, which is the will of God is anything that brings more life into the world. The master teacher Jesus once said, I have come that they may have more life and have it more abundantly. So if it adds to your life and you're not doing it at the expense of someone else, I'm not saying move into somebody's home without their knowledge or permission. I'm saying take the good that's in front of you. It's being offered to you as a gift. And I don't know about you guys, but I was raised with the don't be greedy. Don't ask for too much. For years, anytime I went to a restaurant and I knew somebody else was paying, I would just order the least expensive thing. And yeah, I'm hearing other people going, yeah, I did that. Now, if the person treating you really doesn't have any money, that's a very nice thing to do. But assuming I'm doing that because I'm holding a belief about poverty on the other person, does that really help the other person to get out of poverty? No, because I'm reinforcing the belief every time I go out with them. Or assuming that I have to pay the bill, and if I'm paying the bill, then I can order whatever I really wanted in the first place. Why would I hold somebody else as if they were poor? Why would I assume that the person I am with cannot speak their own truth? Yes, they really did want that last cookie. If they said no, I'm eating it. It's gone. I'm not bringing it back because that's gross. When we are out in the world and claiming our good, part of our job is to look at the other people we're involved with and find that balance between encouraging them to speak their truth and trusting them to speak their truth. And if you can't trust them, trust the God within them. God's fully present in them too, right? Yes? What neighborhood do you people live in? My neighbors are all God's. So in moral leadership, I am required, in my definition of the term, in moral leadership, it is incumbent upon me to act in a good way, to show good character, which to me means if I'm preaching it from up here, if I'm talking about it or teaching it, I have to be doing it. And from that absolute knowing, now I don't have to pretend, worry about who's going to see me when I'm out and about, either being me or that other me. Reverend me or just me. One of the things I love about our leadership is how real they are. I texted Reverend Dr. John Waterhouse the other day and wanted a half an hour of his time just to chat. And he immediately texted back, yeah, sure, I'm sitting on the beach. For you, I'll make time. And I went, no, because I've taken your classes. Call me when you're done vacationing. And I could hear Reverend Dr. Barbara Waterhouse going, yay! When I sat with Dr. Ken last weekend, and I had him all to myself for several hours in the car. God bless him. What? I didn't hit anything. What I loved was that he had very honest opinions. He was not ashamed of them. He didn't apologize for them, but he also wasn't being in any way that he should have been embarrassed by anything he was saying. You know, there are some people who will check to see who's in the room before sharing their real opinion. Like me, some days. Because sometimes I need to remember that say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean, is a really good spiritual truth. So that realness, to me, is born of, it's safe to do if who they really are is someone who believes in these teachings. So there's a whole corner, a whole chunk of our movement now that is trying to go out into the world and live these teachings in a more positive, public way, and sometimes get accused of being political. Everybody in here needs to start breathing again. Breathe. You can do it. I want you to know this is nothing new. This is nothing new. I'm not about to start campaigning for somebody for president. Relax. I don't know who I like yet. And even if I did, why would you care? But let me share with you a story I found about Ernest Holmes. Somebody, every church has that somebody. Somebody saying, stands right next to a lot of people. A lot of people are saying. Never has a first name. Somebody had complained that too many non-Caucasians were attending the services. Yes, that's part of our history. The people who were in the theater that day still remember Dr. Holmes's remarks. He took his place on the platform and just waited. See, everybody knew what was going on. I mean, we all know what's going on in the center, right? We know what the issues of the days are. We know where most of us stand on them. And so this theater was waiting for his moral, spiritual leadership to take a stand somewhere. And so he stood right where he belonged on the platform. And they say you could have heard a pin drop. They didn't have carpeting. But everybody knew that this was the moment of truth. And I want to read his words as he said them. In a standing room only crowd, he said, I have been told that too many non-Caucasians attend these lectures. Okay, first of all, can you imagine having the chutzpah to walk up to Ernest Holmes and say, I know we're all one, but these people are less one than others. Somebody wrote a book about that, right? Animal Farm? True, there are Caucasians and non-Caucasians in this congregation. But this we must affirm. We are all children of one living God, one life that permeates all without exception. One intelligence that governs all, and most important, every man and woman who abides in the universe is a significant identity in the one universal consciousness. Every man, every woman is significant in the one mind. Our doors will forever be open to all. Whoever you are, be proud. You are a divine idea in the mind of God. Everyone applauded, and that took care of that. The end. Ernest Holmes was of such spiritual stature, he never had to address it in that forum again. He did end up having a chat with the publishers of the Science of Mind magazine at one point, saying, we do not have colored churches and white churches. That happened one time, and I'm really glad I wasn't in the room when he found out. Our spiritual leaders are the ones who live on the growing edge of our spiritual consciousness. How many of you have heard of Reverend Dr. Kathy Hearn? Great. Is she a spiritual leader? Somebody we respect? Somebody at summer conference one year walked up to her, and this was like mid-'80s. We don't have these problems anymore. Yeah. Walked up to her and complained because a lesbian couple was dancing together. I fear for that person who complained. Dr. Kathy used to do what she called fireside chats. She'd chat, you sit in the fire. And this is a very loving, sweet, Buddhist-centric person who would never be mean. She could be firm, especially in holding truth. In holding truth, she was not going to waver. But she told them that she thought perhaps they did not understand the teaching or where they were. Our Centers for Spiritual Living has always been open and affirming, and if you think that was popular with everybody, you are wrong. If you think that that was an issue we had only in the 80s, you are wrong. I heard about it right before I got hired, that there were some centers that were having issues with hiring people who were not straight because they didn't want to get known as the gay church. I don't care if people know we're happy. Kind of hope so. But my class was talking about that in ministerial school, that these were the kind of things we were going to have to be willing to stand in our truth about. And we were going to have to do the uncomfortable thing. Spirit has been prodding me, and I'm just going to tell you because that way I'm being held accountable by all of you. Spirit has been prodding me to get my Spanish back up so that we can start serving our Hispanic brothers and sisters. I live in Prescott Valley. We have real Mexican food. That was not something I knew about in New England when I was learning Spanish. I thought Taco Bell was Mexican food. Rewind, I thought Taco Bell was food. They had that green mayo that they called guacamole. I got to California and I'm like, I speak Spanish. And then I had no idea what I'd ordered. It was still good. Why am I not taking care of that? Why are we not out of this building every day of the week serving people who might live on the fringes of our society? I would suggest to you that actually we are. We have a lot of people who volunteer here, and they do it very quietly. I know who you are. You're on my list of people I like. Most people here would not brag about the amount of work they do out in the world. I'm going to ask you to get over your little ego, suck it up, and wear a CSLP t-shirt while you're out there doing all of this good work. I am going to ask that I get over my own shyness and hesitance in speaking the language in which I might tell people to go find a cow. That's not what I meant. God only knows what I'll say. But it's my littleness and my hesitancy that I have to get past and not understand in my world, moral spiritual leadership means that I talk about it and get past it. Not that I never have the question. Not that I never have the problem. It means that my job is to stand in front of you and say, yes, I messed up. I have spent months doing nothing but buying yet more Spanish language programs and never opening the stupid book. El libro es estúpido. I can say that part. Being in spiritual leadership, and you are, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, you are in leadership because other people see how you behave. Children are watching us. Clerks at the stores are watching us. And you have the opportunity every single day to turn someone's life around with, hi, how are you doing? And waiting for an answer. Not, hi, how you doing? I'm moving on. You have the opportunity to be the one person who doesn't pick on that poor clerk, who apparently is in charge of all shipping and pricing and everything else in the store, according to the people who've been yelling at them for the last half hour. And that's important to remember because we're going into the Christmas season. According to some stores, we've been there for a month. We have the opportunity to provide examples of good behavior, ways of being in the world that are born of our belief in oneness. And it's not always going to be easy. Last week, Dr. Ken talked about how when the flames get brighter, the shadow gets longer. Our job is to not focus on just one or the other. It is to see through the shadow to the flame. Not to pretend the shadow isn't there. Not to pretend that in our history we never had people who were, thank you, Dr. Kathy, engaging in unskilled behavior. Normally we just call them names, but I choose to go back and remember that they too are God. that even in my head, I cannot afford to make them my enemy. Even in my head, if I am to live a truly prosperous and moral life, I have to do what Gandhi and Martin Luther King did, which was practice what he called ahimsa. There's a sister version of that called satyagraha, and I'm only telling you that because I spent a week learning to say the word. The idea is that not even in my mind will I practice the violence of seeing someone separate from God. Once that has been established in our minds and hearts, not only do our lives get better, but the world becomes a better place because we can't help but live from it. And if we can't help but live from it and believe it all the way down to our toes, who knows? Peace will break out. Then what are we going to do? I'm more than happy to find out. I'm more than happy to live in the world that works for everyone because that will work better for me. I am more than happy to stand here before you and say, I am not, I know this is going to come as a shock, I am not perfect. Last week, do you know what my mantra was? Please, God, don't stink. Please, God, don't stink. Because I had been without heat and hot water for 10 days. Ugh. I was practicing gratitude so hard like you wouldn't believe. I was grateful for the ceiling which had not fallen in. I was grateful for the walls that had not cracked. I was grateful for the door right until the handle came off in my hand again. I fixed it. But it was a series of opportunities for me because it all started with a rock hitting a window on a sliding glass door. In order to fix it wasn't worth fixing, so I had to replace the whole thing. In order to do that, I had to fix the patio out in front of it, and it was a good thing I did because the guys fixing it fell through it. They were okay. But as they were doing that fixing, they were using power tools. And suddenly, my lights were doing weird things. They only had half energy. And we didn't have hot water. So I had to have them take a look at the hot water heater. Thank you, $800 later, we had prevented a fire that was going to happen. It was all messed up inside, and the person who very lovingly installed it for me set it up so all of the control panel was right against the wall. We got that fixed. I still didn't have hot water, so what we found out was that it was the main breaker. Not a short that would have burned down the house, thank you, God. In all of that, I had the power to remain somewhat centered. Grateful I was away at a hotel for the weekend. Hot water. The pipes didn't break. I could be grateful for that. I had a bad moment with that for a second. It brought me into solidarity with the homeless of our area, people who are experiencing homelessness. Because I got up and threw on every blanket and warm thingy in the morning that I could think of, and it was still only 60 degrees in my house. Someone slept in Prescott at 21 degrees. All of our lives, our insides are reflecting our outside, and our outside is reflecting what's really within us. And so I could freak out and say, I have bad consciousness and that's why things broke. Or I could actually practice this and say, I have wonderful consciousness. Thank God for that initial rock, which saved me from having my house burned down or falling through that patio myself. Deck, whatever it's called. God bless it. It's made out of flippin' gold now. It gives me the opportunity to go back and do those prosperity prayers. You know what happens when I have big bills? I have big income. That was a great day to go buy a lottery ticket. Because what I know is that the minute I have the bill, I know it's not my bill, it's my boss's bill. This center is going to need some money soon for something, I don't know what. yay, the minister was praying for money anyway. This is how life works when you are truly practicing this. You see both the shadow and the light. And the shadow becomes a very juicy place to go look at because it tells you where there's more light to be found, where there's more energy to be released. Now, granted, that week I had to take off my no complaining bracelet. Because in my head, I still had a door so I could close it and complain from behind it. But in my head, it was very loudly tempting me to forget everything I know. But in truth, we all have these great spiritual leaders in our lives. We have the practitioners who can actually sit down in prayer with you and shift reality. Shift reality so that your life gets better and that thing that has been bothering you can be healed. I not only believe it, I depend on it. If I lose something, it used to be, dear St. Anthony, look around, something's lost, it must be found. You know what it is now? God, I don't care where it was. I don't care where other people have seen it. I need it here now. And then it is. Over and over and over again. My credit card has moved through so much alternate reality. It got to the point, at one point, where the whole money thing has become a joke in our family because I would say, oh, Kelly, I have a great big bill, because I can talk that way to my big sister. I have a great big bill, and she'd say, shut up and go check the mail. You know what's going to happen. There's going to be a check. Every single time. Every single time this stuff works. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you can do big flowery prayers or you just say, handle it. That's been, some of my best prayers have been 4-letter words. Very short. I won't do them from here, thank you. This stuff works. And my job is to be here and prove it to you. That stumbling through this, doing the best we can on any given day, this stuff works and the world needs us to work it. And so that's what we're going to do right now. We have a type of prayer that is known all over the world. Known, and I mean that literally, because Dr. Ken was telling us stories about the people who have heard of our teaching, who are using our form of prayer because we do it right. Because we do it, and by right I mean effectively. There's lots of right ways, but our way is the most effective that has been found thus far. And so we're going to practice that right now, and I invite you to go within with me on whatever path leads you to the divine. That inside space where we are knowing spirit and abundance and good. And in that inside space, we stand right in the middle of the light and let go of all of the shadows. That inside space is where we recognize the truth of our being, which is the divine being, which is alive with intelligent energy that shifts according to our beliefs and thoughts, that shifts according to our will. As we hold our sight upon that light, whatever it might be to us personally, the entire reality of the universe is moved and shifted and changed to be more perfectly aligned with the perfection of spirit. We are of that spirit. We are one in that spirit. We're surrounded and indwelt by it. There's nowhere else to go and nothing else to be. There is God and only God. A single power and presence beside which there is no other. And within this presence, with this knowledge, I stand affirming and witnessing the truth of our being. That as we live from this truth, our lives get better. There is greater prosperity, there is greater love, there is greater joy, there is greater oneness. This center is a place where people's lives are changed, and we take it out into the world to do the most good we possibly can, everywhere we can, in whatever language it takes. I celebrate that the absolute truth of our being is that Godness that is infecting every aspect of the Quad City area and the state of Arizona and this country and this globe. It is the love and joy and power and peace that is the divine that lives within us that we are now seeing in the world around us. Seeing it in the world around us like we're looking in a mirror. I celebrate that truth. I know it is the truth of all of our beings, Caucasian or non-Caucasian, gay, straight, all of us. We're a good idea in the mind of God, and we have been made flesh. For this I am grateful, and together we all affirm, and so it is.